Welcome.
Move it over by the microwave if you want to.
So I'm excited to talk about the UI scene in Elm in general, but also the elm-ui library, which is out there. So my name's Dave Alger, and as you can see, there's a wrapping issue with my name over here, but that's okay because I'm an artist, so I can do that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I put in some slides with stuff you find on my whiteboard at work. So like I'm always putting some phrase about something I'm working on, or here's, I don't know if you get this, is a nerd joke. See, it's not the droid you're looking for. Yeah, okay. Yoda's really hard to draw, but somehow I got it on there. There's no try. And one last one. My wife told me to go wash our car once, and I saw this beautiful canvas on the back of the window. There was a paintbrush on the garage floor, so I picked up a paintbrush and started dusting away dirt until this appeared. And I was out there for like an hour. She comes out thinking the car's going to be all spotless, but she's like, okay, I guess you can wash it later. You left it. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, can an artist really do functional reactive programming? And the answer with Elm is yes. So I know this is a kind of a bad picture, but my last company, I thought it was appropriate to dress up like Napoleon Dynamite on Halloween. And what's funny is when I was still pretty new there, I'd only been there like a month, and one of the sales ladies comes up to me and she says, "Hey, are you the new engineer?" She didn't even think I was dressed up. I was like, "I'm Dave," and she's like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you."
Not the locks, Dave. Is that a wig or is that your hair?
Yeah, that's So I am going to show you the very first program I ever wrote, and this kind of dates me. So I wrote it on a Commodore 64, which computers used to look like this. But I thought it was really cool. I was a little kid, and I figured out that if I typed this, I could just spam this. Yeah. So the first program I ever wrote was an infinite loop. But then, I thought, I learned that, how do I just turned off the computer because I didn't know how to get out of that. And then later, I worked at Microsoft for 6 years, where I realized that pretty much all programs are infinite loops, so it's not that big of a deal. And that's what I was going to talk about, is kind of the whole model. If any of you have done like React Redux apps, or it's just this infinite loop that as the state changes, or it just redraws only what it needs to redraw. And that's kind of how most video games are programmed. So I just want to quickly show off this little thing. This was a proud papa moment. My 14-year-old son took a Python class online, and he worked hard on this for a couple of months, but he drew all the graphics on my iPad and made this game where, whoa.
Space unicorns soaring through the stars, delivering the rainbows all around the world. Space unicorn shining in the night, smiles and hugs forever all around the world.
So I laughed so hard I cried. I was like, that was so fun. Yeah, it was cool. It was like an online course where the professor gave him all the math and stuff, but he came up with that on his own. And then last, I want to show this real quick. So you can see the path that Mario is taking as I jump, or jump straight up and down a few times, or even jump and then move over and back. And what's cool about this is if I pause it, I can go back to any point in time of the state of this, and even do things like come over here and see where this gravity function is. I can change gravity and make it like 10 or something. And you can see how all the states are, it just goes through all the functions again, and just stores those changes over time. So just the delta changes. So this is a really cool thing about functional programming in general. And you can even do stuff like this in React. But I thought when I saw that, I was like, okay, I got to learn this. I don't care if you're an artist, you got to learn how to do this functional stuff because it's cool. And so today we're going to just talk about this library called elm-ui out on GitHub. And Elm itself is really opinionated in the sense that it doesn't, like, if you come from a JavaScript background, you're used to just type in whatever you want and it just will run. It just works, and it doesn't do what you want, but it works. And so that was kind of the exactly. So getting over that initial hurdle of being like, you can only do it this way, you have to do everything a certain way, turned out to be a good thing. I linked to one of my first tweets was, see if it loads. I was saying in jest how much I like CSS because there's a billion ways to do one thing. You know, like anyone who's struggled with CSS and different browser bugs and stuff, and all the different workarounds and hacks, and you just think, I mean, we're just laying out boxes. We're just like saying where rectangles are and stuff. Why is there so many ways to do this? I don't know. And you can relate to that. So, well, the good thing is in Elm, there's really only one way to do things the right way. So elm-ui takes that a step further. It's like a wrapper around Elm. So it gives you this project, this structure where you put a main.elm file in source, and you put main.scss in style sheets, and you're going to use Sass, and you're going to use, I forgot the server that it uses. It doesn't use the Elm, what's the Elm? Yeah, Elm Reactor. It doesn't use your Elm Reactor. So we'll see how this works. But if you don't fight it, just like you don't fight Elm, after a day or so, you're like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. This does everything I need it to do. And at the end of the day, I have a working, functioning, really efficient JavaScript code that I didn't have to write. So that's the thing. So in order to use elm-ui, you have to install this global package. And then it gives you this new command line interface. So this is what I mean by how it wraps all of Elm. So instead of doing things through Elm, you do elm-ui, init my project name, and it'll create that folder structure that we just looked at with a sample plus minus counter. So you can see all the code, and that's how I started the game that we're going to work on in just a minute. Then you get these other commands. elm-ui install will go look at all the dependencies and create, it'll just pull down what it needs in your program, whatever you're using, modules. And then elm-ui server starts up a live refresh server. So as you make changes to your code, you can go see them in the browser. And then when you're all done, elm-ui build will make a dist folder with compressed, generated everything you need. And this is, I think that's it. That's the process I use to make rock-paper-scissors, which we're going to work on now. Maybe what I should do first is just run elm-ui. All right, can we see it?
That's a little better, yeah.
Okay. Whoa. Okay. My cool UI. elm-ui project. And then if we go to my cool UI project, and
Nice.
can we see?
Yeah.
All right. So here we already have a working application, and you'll notice, I mean, this HTML package is the normal way to do things, but if you've spent any time on the Elm Slack channel, one of the first things a lot of people ask for is there like a bootstrap for this? Because I don't know how to make things look good. So if you use the basic HTML package, you're going to get basic HTML elements, and it's really good and really efficient. And I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't use elm-ui without also using this. But what you get in addition to that are these cool UI. In this case, we're using a UI container, a UI button, the UI app, and you get these components that are a lot like, I guess, Angular UI or Bootstrap. It looks a lot like that. So here's the default scaffolding project. If you look at it, and even if you didn't know any Elm, you could kind of guess that this is adding and subtracting stuff from a counter. And so let's go back to here and run elm-ui server. And you'll see that it gives you this localhost 8002. If you go there, you will see I forgot to run install. So I don't have all the dependencies. So first I need to and you don't need to run this a lot, but if you start pulling in other dependencies, then you do need to run it again. So keep in mind that this is without doing anything. It already has this long list of dependencies, which most of these you probably end up pulling in anyway. So the fact that it just did it for you, that's great. So now let's try that again. See if that got it working. Oh, there was an error. Wow, we're not off to a good start. Okay, let me just go ahead and run elm-ui build. You shouldn't have to do that, so I don't know. And then it's rerunnable and won't pull in stuff you already have. So it should be quick. And this is the only other command. Did it work? Let's go to a new browser tab and try it out. Hey, we have an elm-ui app. And so, as you can see, I haven't written any Elm code yet, and I already have this elm-ui app that updates, you know, based on these button clicks. So if we go back here, did anyone get a chance to go look at this kitchen sink demo? You can see that it's got quite a few things at your disposal, including these tabs and other things that I didn't get to use, like the ratings. So I did look at this notification center, so we're going to look at how that works a little bit. And then, so that's the basic scaffolding project. For the project that we're going to work on today, did I put the link here? Let's go back to the bottom. So here's what we're going to try and do. We are going to get, and if you just want to follow along all the, let me get clone. If you get this repository. Oops, I forgot. So we're going to clone this repository, and I'm going to clone it to rock, paper, scissors. Okay, so is everyone following along up to this point? Because what I want to do is what we just did with that last scaffolding project, I want to do the same thing here. So elm-ui install to get all the stuff that it needs. Yeah, I didn't play around with the test, but it's, and then elm-ui. I'll go ahead and build just for good measure.
I think he wrote the JSON parsing stuff too originally before it got into core.
Yeah, he did.
It's kind of funny. He has this. It's like if his name was like Cool Skater Boy 88 or something.
And then elm-ui server. Let's see if this works. Hopefully I didn't get a chance to try it, but hopefully, yeah, it just reloaded. So here's the starting project, but there's some problems with it. And so our goal is to, so I used those same counter buttons that were already there, just renamed them something else. And when you click them, it updates some CSS classes here. So these are just, this is all CSS. And, but it doesn't tell you your score doesn't update. And if I want the game result, if I click this button, it tells me it's a tie. So that's cool, but that's kind of, so did I win or lose? Well, oh, you lost because scissors cuts paper, you know. So the goal here is to do this. So now that does everyone have this much up and running? If you have this much up and running, here's the goal to close some of these tabs. Fix the score to keep a running total of wins and losses. And I think maybe I'll just like take a little break and then see, like, kind of go around and help everyone do this if you need help, or fix the game results to show notifications after each button click. So instead of having to click that little gray button on the end, we'll get rid of that gray button, and we'll see if we can't get the notifications to go on the blue buttons. Add buttons for Lizard and Spock. The CSS is already there. So that's probably the hardest one, because you have to not only add, you'd have to change quite a bit of, like, 3 or 4 functions. Like the computer has 2 more random choices, and then how do you figure out the wins and losses. And then I didn't ever do this last one, but show instructions on the initial page load. So when this page initially loads, see how there's nothing, it doesn't say what to do. I'm just kind of counting on the fact that there's not much to do, that people will click these buttons, but you could, like, you know, if there isn't, in fact, what happens if I click game result? Oh, look at that, awesome. That's what's so cool about Elm. It's not a runtime error, because it just had, you know, it had to do something. It's not exactly good, but it's kind of true, right? Like, there is no game result. You haven't done anything.
More and more like JavaScript.
Turns out you're just treating
So,
runtime errors for logic errors.
if you want to see the almost finished product, it kind of looks like this. So you can see that, you know, as you click, whoa.
Dude, Lizard, man.
My score's back to 0. Oh, good. I'm back up to 1. Oh, back down to 0. So you can see kind of how that works. And I will.
Once you have the Spock button, that's the only one I can click.
Did you already add the buttons and stuff?
Yeah, but I was
Man, you're
playing
like
around
a
with it when you posted it in the
okay. If you really want to, like, go above and beyond, you can look at that elm-ui library and change all the buttons to, like, a drop down or something. But
Well, don't get crazy now.
yeah. Oh, I put comments in the code. Maybe I can just go over that real quick. Was it? Did I lose connection? So, not this one. So I kind of have these steps where you can kind of see what goes where, and at the top is where you list all the dependencies, and it talks about that in case you've never done this. But it's normally when you have a larger application, you won't just have one main.elm, you'll have like lots of modules, and then you can expose functions in those modules this way. And what's cool, what I really like is that everything's a function. So, like, okay, not everything, but because this is a type alias, but like if you type the number 4 in the Elm REPL, we should look at that. So it has this Elm REPL. You can try stuff out in here and see that, okay, 4 is just, you could think of it as a function that just returns a number, and the number always happens to be 4. If you do, say, like, comment add A and B equals A plus B. So this was one of my favorite things about Elm once I kind of saw the beauty of it, where, look, we have this add function, and you don't have to type a lot of stuff. If you just type, basically any string you type is now a function name if you put an equal sign. You know, and then the stuff before that is what you pass into it. But if we have a function called add that actually has 3 different return types. It's still strongly typed, but if you type add, well, the return type is number, number, number. That's the return type of that. But if you do add like 2, then the return type is number, number. And if you do add 2 and 2, the return type is number, which is back to the 4. And I thought this was so cool because even like this operator, oh, Where have we seen that? You know, it's that thing, that thing that we just did. We made a function called add, but you can use this operator just like that. Let's see, and so that's a function as well. And so when I really started seeing the beauty of this notation, where it's kind of like the types are really rigid, but the syntax is really really cool and flexible. I just like that a lot because currying is built in. So let's say we want an increment function, and what increment does is it just takes in some number and it just adds 1 to it. Oh wait, that's not increment. Yeah, it has to take in a number to increment, and then it returns that add. So the add function takes in 2 numbers and returns a number. Well, it returns a number if you give it 2 numbers. So here I'm giving the add function 2 numbers, which happens to be the number you pass in and then 1. And so now increment is this function with number. So like inc 4 is 5, or inc 9, 10. I just think it's really cool how you can build up these functions from these little tiny functions, and you don't have to go out of your way to say that. It's just, you just have to pass it less arguments, and then it knows that you're actually, you know what I mean? It's the currying and all the cool stuff that you get out of functional programming is just built into the language. It's just how you type it. It can figure it all out. So there's that. So did anyone get the score to update? Or you got the score to update? Jameson's done. He's got the, and you could, here's one other thing I just wanted to talk about. And this isn't about Elm or elm-ui, but this is just about functional programming in general. There's, when I'm getting the result, there's these functions, these like helper functions, like choice to int and int to choice. So the player chooses something by clicking on a button, and you can see that int to choice just takes in a number, like in this case it's a random number for the computer choice, and it converts it to one of these strings over here. And so here's one way to do that, where you use the array, and the array doesn't know if it's going to get it, so now you have to, it comes back as a maybe, and then you just hopefully never pass it a number that's not one of these. So this is one way to do that function. There's like, now I could have also done it this way. I could have just said, case int this rock 0 rock 1 paper. And so this one's done differently on purpose to show, well, how Elm will yell at you if you don't cover every possible case. So I can already see it's like, hey, you could have a bug here. So that's one cool thing about it. But what's also cool about it is if you were to come into a code base like this, like as a new developer, you could look at this and say, okay, I see what it's doing. It takes in a string and it returns an int. I see the purpose of this, but this is a really inefficient way to do it. I could do it, in one line of code. So I could just start optimizing the code right here and be comfortable doing it, rather than have to go look at, a lot of code to figure out if there's any side effects. There's no side effects. Just anytime this function's called, you know that it's gonna, as long as the same inputs return the same outputs, you can change the code all you want, and you can do it pretty comfortably. So I know that's why Jameson's cruising over there, because he's done a lot more Elm and
I've never seen Rock-Paper-Lizard
Rock-Paper-Scissors-Spock-Lizard-Spock.
Oh, really? So how are you going to figure out? Okay, so scissors cuts paper, paper covers rock, rock smashes lizard, lizard poisons Spock, Spock disassembles scissors, scissors decapitates lizard, lizard eats paper, paper disproves Spock, Spock vaporizes rock, and rock crushes scissors like usual.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, I better put that somewhere. Okay. Well, yeah, so I didn't have time to figure this out, but I was gonna, there is a way, if you, there is a functional way to calculate these results. I just did this case where it takes in this tuple, where the first integer is the player's choice and the second integer is the computer's random choice. And then it says, oh, okay, well, in this case, you lost, so you get -1 point. And here's the message I'm going to show you. So that's how this function works. But because all the choices are integers and because the results are functional, you could do this like in one line or 1 or 2 lines. You could do this. But that's what's so cool is like you create a function. In this case, this getResult function that takes in this tuple and then returns this other result to display in the messaging notifications. But what's cool is that, you know, I just got it working because I was doing this like a couple of nights ago late and I just wanted it to work. But I could come back in here later and I don't have any ramp up. I could just start going right into this function and making it better. It's a really cool way to code. So I'm gonna start working on one of these. Here's my favorite one. So when you go to this comments. So at the top, right after you import all the modules, you define your model. So this is all the stuff, this is your state that you need to keep track of. And so in this model, I store like a game result, which is whether to plus or -1 in the string, player choice, and a computer choice. Probably the hardest part of this whole app, which you haven't talked about, is getting a random number because it's not a pure function. And I played around with some ways to do this without using external random library, but I didn't want to, and it actually worked pretty good. So what I did was I took a signal of the millisecond, so the time signal, and if you just take the milliseconds and mod that over the number of choices, that alone is probably random enough. But if you happen to click at the same millisecond every time, you could get the same result. So that's how you'd break that. And then multiplying the milliseconds at the click times the mouse X signal and the mouse Y signal. So now you have to not only click at the exact same millisecond, but you have to click on the exact same pixel to get the exact same result. So just by multiplying those together, I was able to kind of fake randomness with pure functions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it worked pretty good, but I wanted to just do, this is kind of actually what I wanted to do was use this a port to pull in the date time. So all random number generators need some kind of something to seed. So the seed is usually the milliseconds, the date.now, and you get that through a port. But one other thing that elm-ui has built in is called, so this ext module, and so I just pulled it out of there. So I didn't. This is how I get the initial random seed, and you have this this init function. All it does is set everything to this is the initial state, similar to like how React works and stuff. And then
Can you pull up the steps again? What we're supposed to be asking the one?
oh yeah. So fix the score to keep a running total of wins and losses, and then try and fix the notifications. And that's kind of what I was gonna. I'll go over the notification one right now. So after you have your initial data model, this is all your state. You have this update function, which you create these actions, which can be named whatever you want. In this case, I have a notices action of type UI notification center action. So this the way this works is these.
Stuff outside.
Yeah.
Just inside. Okay.
Oh, good.
Right on top of it. 5 minutes late.
Sorry, I told you it's
Nice.
You have to handle all of these actions down here in this this update loop. So this is your infinite update, and so I have this app came as part of the init elm-ui init, the scaffolding project. So I did a notices one that's pretty similar, where it has this thing called notifications in the model on notices, and I pass in this notices here, and then when I do this send notification, that's the last button that we're trying to get rid of. I just call notify and give notify the model. So what's cool about this notify function, if I go down here, you can see that it takes in a model and it returns this thing, which is what this update needs. See this? So all I have to do is, where I'm not returning any effects, this is my favorite part of it about functional programming, is you can just chain. I hope this works. I think so. I'm going to just chain this model because notify knows how to turn a result into a model. I'm just gonna do that. So just by doing that, it's saved. So let's see if it works. We still have this thing, but is this? Oh, that did not work.
I think it's a game result to get the notification.
Supposed to type.
Notify?
It worked here.
The notification, when it first is going, the notification only comes up on game result. I just updated it and it works.
What did you do?
You just copied yours. Didn't work.
Oh, well, yeah, it compiled, so maybe and that's, oh, I'm not running the thing, that's why. Always make sure your server's running. Uh-oh.
Something is running.
I'm running too many things. So let's, this is the one. See if that fixes it. But
Click game result.
you have to click. me kill some of this stuff. Oh, I know why. That's my problem. So the code I'm changing is not the code I'm running. So this is the, right? This is not, because this is elm-ui rocks and I cloned it to RPS or something like that. So let me just add code this. And in here. So now we're doing, so there's your model, your whole application state. Here's the update function where you put all your kind of business logic to the model, and then finally you render it, the view. And the view will render based on, see how it takes in the action model and outputs the HTML over and over again. So that's what I mean by this is kind of like a video game. So in here, this div, is everyone here pretty familiar with this list notation of the DOM? It's basically every element in the DOM is a list of attributes and a list of other elements. So yeah, so that's, and once you start getting used to how this kind of formatting with the commas all in line with the brackets, it really helps. But you can see that, was there a warning? So now we're using UI button warning, and I will go back over. So yeah, now I'm changing the right code. So this is still broken, but let's go back to that. So instead of this, we are going to take that model and go notify. And since the notify function just needs a model, we can leave the button there. It should be, oh, I don't have to refresh. There, now we got it. So, wow, I'm doing bad. Good thing I didn't hook up the score. But see, now we can remove this button, so we don't need that one. Is everyone doing all right then with the, you want me to put the, has anyone done all 4 objectives or need help with one of them?
Is there a reload club?
Oh yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna wait until
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt everybody.
Oh no, yeah, let's
Sorry, we don't accept that.
the repo is at runtime / elm-ui rocks. So if you clone this repo, and also the repo has the goals and stuff in the README, if you want to just look at the README. And it also has some of the stuff we talked about before you were here, if you want to read that. So yeah, there's a lot more to like about Elm, but I've only been using it a few months, and I just put my top 3. Everyone talks about the 0 runtime errors, but I like how the whole language is just tiny functions that just build on each other. That really speaks to me. And this notation, this with currying built in, where if just based on what you type, I know exactly what you mean. Kind of like you don't have to, I don't know. You have to learn it, but once you learn it, it's really cool once you start using it. I also made, if there's a Elm Slack chat, and I made a Elm Golf channel on there, And so I posted a solution to take a list of integers and return the percentage of the integer in the same spot, if that makes sense. So a list of integers of 50, 50, 50 would return 50, 50, but a list of 1, 2 would return 33, 65, or 34. So the list has to add up to 100%. And so anyway, I came up with a 240, I don't know, my solution was like 240 characters. It's down to like 100 characters. So it's been cut in half. So if you have like a function that you're kind of like, you really want to like reduce, go put it in Elm Golf and say, hey, who can do this in the fewest characters? And now you have a really fast function. But it's also fun, and it's also, I don't know. There's something creative about functional programming. I'm trying to put my finger on it, but I don't know. I started out doing, big data warehouse development. So at Microsoft, I was doing massive database warehouses. Like, how is that creative? But I don't know. It was just, there's something about it that was creative to me. I don't know why database, but now, yeah. So let's go ahead and add. I'm going to try this one because I haven't tried it yet. Show instructions on initial page load. Did anyone do that one yet? We can do it together. So we can get rid of this button because now we have the notifications are now chained to these primary actions. And what we want to do is for this row right here, where it puts the two divs side by side with the different choices, we want to change that in the case of, so let's just take this out and put results row. So we need a function called results row that returns that. It's gonna take in, I don't know what it takes in, lists of stuff. Equals. Take in this list. It's going to return. No, we'll take in our model. Return this and results flow model. Okay, so now we have this. Oh, that's just saying that I don't have the. But now we have this function that takes in the model, and based on this model, we have to either return what it was returning, which is this, or something else. So if model dot where are you up here? So the game result starts out as 0 this, and I don't think it ever can be that again. No, because it says tie. Is there a better way to do this? Is anyone working on this yet? Talk through it.
Still digesting everything.
Yeah, it is.
Does anyone have any just like totally not sure what's going on questions?
Okay. Did you
I'm
get?
trying to get the score to update.
Okay, let's work on
and
that.
I'm in the right place. And update player choice.
Let's do that one first then.
We're updating the model. So let me just talk through what I think is supposed to happen.
Good.
You tell me where I'm wrong.
Okay.
All right. So add a new line under game result for score. And I understand at this point that I want to do model.score plus the result from get result.
This.
And can I access that variable, the game result, or do I need to?
You can.
Do I need to run that up above somewhere and get the?
So that's a really good question. Let's do this and see what happens. So the score was already in the model up here, and it was 0. We just were never setting it in. And so now what we're going to do is part of this update, we're going to set it equal to whatever it is, and then whatever this result was. The problem here is you'll always be one step behind.
Yeah. So, but you're getting the result and setting it to game result. So you just. So I guess what I'm confused is. I guess before we get to that, in update player choice, I'm not familiar with what let and in do. I've not gotten that far in my Elm study. So is let just like JavaScript let? Is it the same thing, or what is it doing there?
So
Kind of define what those variables are going to mean inside of the end block.
So yeah, if we take all this away, we are going to have access to choice and model because we're passing these things into this function, and so we can just return this and use choice and model. But we need more than that. We also need like this new random number for the computer's choice, and we get the computer's choice by passing this new random number into this into choice. I look up the string because the string is what's used in, I guess we didn't really look at this, but in the style sheets, see these classes. So by setting the class equal to this string, that's what makes the picture appear. It's just a SVG encoded in there. So, but yeah, this is saying I also need to pass. I also need this, and you get that by calling this random.generate function. And so, if you look up the docs on random.generate, you see what it passes in is this this random.int range from 0 to 2, and this seed, which is coming from the model because of the initial date time. And then you're going to get this, it's going to go in here so that you can use it in the stuff below here.
I guess when I said it's not like let in JavaScript, so if you use let in JavaScript, that implies that the value that you're assigning to the variable that you're declaring with let can change over time. But let here, at least as I understand it, is saying that inside of the end block that follows, those variables you're declaring there are always going to have those values.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's letting you.
So Elm does that because a function can only do one thing. You're only because in JavaScript you'd have a function update player choice, parameters choice model, and then you start your block. And you say let new rand and you see equal random.generate and all that stuff, and then you'd have your code using those variables underneath it.
Right, that's a good way to describe it. So
you could even under the let, you could even in the next line add new score equals 5. And then if you in the in block said score equals new score, then after that update, it would change the, have the, yes, right there you can just say new score equals 5. And then in the end, instead of saying model.score, model.data, you can just say new score. So you can define as many, or declare as many variables as values inside of that. Now every time it's just going to be
So if you didn't have that let and in those blocks, you couldn't declare variables that you wanted to use in the.
You either have to pass them in. So the cool thing about this is about everything being built in is the function. You don't ever type the word return because everything's returning, right?
Right.
So you have the function name, you have what's coming in. If you don't pass it in, but you want to use some extra stuff, then that's how you do it.
Okay.
I think some late.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you just need to. It's like you're telling
Yes.
I need these variables because if you didn't tell it that, then it would think you're wanting to return.
Right. It's
okay.
and you don't really need them to go anywhere, right? I just need them for this. I need to call this random function so that I can get the new seed and the new number. And then in the model where we have the seed, it needs to update this. It's kind of like this chain where the next number is calculated based on the previous. Mm-hmm. And then the only important thing then to get a really random number every time the page reloads is the initial seed has to be that date.ext.date.now. So that's a good question.
So
how do we do this?
So get result returns a tuple with the effect it'll have on the score, right? As the first part of the tuple.
Equals model.score plus. So this returns, you're right. So let's get the first thing out of there. And you know how to do that? How do you get the first thing out of a tuple? It's really common. First or second gets the second thing. But yeah, you want to get the first, yeah.
I do sometimes feel like all of the elm syntax that I don't know is immediately recognizable when I see it and impossible to remember because it's like almost first.
Yeah. So we are going to
those 2 bytes.
add that thing to that. And new score. Let's try that. Hey, we got a score of 1. Oh, now we got 2. I'm on a roll. I'll just keep going. Oh, no, now I'm going negative. Oh. There is kind of a bug here, right? I think that.
What do you mean?
Well,
It's predictable.
yeah. I'm at -7. That's a bug. Okay. Anyway, so we got the score working. We got the notifications working. What else do we have to do? We're almost there. We got to add buttons for Lizard and Spock. Was anyone able to add those buttons or update the get result function so that it uses the integers to actually calculate who won? I mean, that's that might be that kind of stuff takes a lot of at least for me. I have to map it all down. I'm really visual. You can tell I like to see the Mario's jumps change as I mess with the gravity. Did you get to see that part? Were you here for that or?
I've seen that before,
Yeah, it's really cool, the hot updates. So this is the part I've never done. So this is what I'm trying to do live. Dang it. Where are you? Darth Vader, man. He just, okay. Let's, so right now this results row is returning this. But what we want to do is if, how do we do this? If model dot game results is equal to the initial state, which is this, then we want to do something else. We want to return else. We want to return this one. And we will just put, get rid of that div. Oops. So we will just not put a class in here. And we will just put text in here. See what happens when we click something. Hey, look, it's saying click something. And then when we click something, it actually does have a different game result. So there, we got that one. Of course, that's really not much more helpful than just showing. But you get the idea, right? There's one, yeah, there's this model that stores all the state, and then you update it, and then the view generates based on how it changed. And it's really efficient and really cool. I think that's it. Did anyone have any other questions about elm-ui in general and just my experience using it the last little while? I wish I would have, I mean, this at least got to show the basic button and the notifications, which is what's really cool that you get out of here for free. I didn't have to code a lot of that. But there's so much more to elm-ui. So really, if you know, if this made sense to you and you want to try out with some little bit bigger app, then go for it. Use some of those other components. And
I have a question about this. So like Bootstrap it's kind of like a drop-in thing. This feels a lot more like it's almost another framework.
yeah,
on top
it
of
is. Yeah, that was probably a bad comparison. You're right. You can add Bootstrap on top of like an existing thing. This really is, you have to start from the scaffolding in it. You really do have to adopt Sass. You have to use the browser sync, you know, the elm-ui server. You really do have to use all of that. At the end of the day, just like everything else, it's just compiled JavaScript. So that app, once you type elm-ui build, you just get some, you know, some compiled JavaScript that works, hopefully.
Cool.
So what is elm-ui? That guy that shows up late.
No. Well, yeah.
It's a recap, right?
Yeah, it is. It's good.
Digest version.
It's good. So elm-ui is an opinionated framework that wraps Elm with Sass, and it comes with a lot of components that are already styled to look consistent. So here's the kitchen sink example, where, you know, it has this rating system. Here's the notification center that we were using. These, you can configure the HTML, like you saw how we were putting a plus or minus in there. So you can customize a lot of these things. At the base, there's a UI.container that pretty much all of these things go in. But you can tell that it's, oh, not this one. It has a lot of the components you'd expect, like I just changed the date here, or I was going to show you the icon button. You can add icons to buttons pretty easy, like you'd expect in a library like this. And any other questions? And it has
Dave, thank you for
break.
preparing this for us.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.